Ohio there, this is Kermit the Frog.
I'm Captain Kirk.
Fascinating.
I'm a doctor, not a mechanic.
Thank you, love you. Mwah.
Most illogical.
Aye, sir.
Well, that was different. Yep, lousy, but different.
Places, please, and here we go.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, Bajorans, chickens, and things, to episode 121 of the MuppeTrek Podcast. I'm Steve.
And I'm Jarman, and we're here to compare, contrast, and confer about our two favorite franchises. And what are those, Steve?
The Muppets and Star Trek. We're going to be doing one-to-one reviews of the Muppet Show and Star Trek The Next Generation.
And tonight we're covering the Muppet Show with special guest star Linda Ronstadt and Star Trek The Next Generation episode, Coming of Age. How sweet. Before we do that, Steve, tell us about the guest star on Muppet Show this week, Linda Ronstadt.
Well, she is an American singer who worked across multiple music genres, including country, pop, and rock. She had 24 studio albums under her belt, won 11 Grammys, 3 American Music Awards, 2 Country Music Awards, and an Emmy.
Jesus.
She was a trailblazer in the male-dominated world of rock, and the Chicago Sun-Times once described her as the dean of 1970s school of female rock singers.
Oh.
But what does our audience know her from? You have heard at least one of her songs, whether it's You're No Good, Desperado, Different Drum, Blue Bayou, which wasn't hers, but became her signature song. You've heard something from Linda Ronstadt, and she's still around and kicking, though apparently sometime in the early 2000s, she revealed that she had a medical diagnosis of some sort of palsy, where she basically was losing fine control of her, like the muscles that control her vocal cords.
Ah.
And so she literally can't sing anymore. Her voice doesn't do the thing anymore.
That sucks, because also recently...
But she's still alive. And
yeah, she got a big resurgence recently from Last of Us, the TV show, because her song was featured in the very sentimental episode that got a lot of attention. So her downloads of that song went up 4,000% apparently during that episode. So yeah, she's still
but
relevant.
she still does work in the arts and charity and that kind of stuff. She's still very active. She just doesn't really sing anymore.
It's too bad.
But what is she up to this week on the Muppet Show? Well, backstage, Gonzo is relocating his fungus collection in a giant steamer trunk, and Kermit's getting all gussied up for Linda Ronstadt because he's got a crush on her. But Piggy is jealous and not amused, and she shoves Kermit into Gonzo's fungus trunk and locks him in there. Linda finds and releases him, only to reveal that she also has a crush on Kermit. And she sings the song, I've Got a Crush on You. It's a nice backstage musical number. Afterward, Piggy comes back and puts Kermit back in the trunk. Linda is up in her dressing room talking with her gal singers, and she confesses her crush for Kermit, and she sings It's in His Kiss with Janet and the girls. Linda discovers that Kermit is back in the trunk. Piggy, to stop her from unleashing him, drags him out on stage for Pigs in Space. Piggy finally reveals and admits to Linda that she loves Kermit, and that's why she's so territorial. And so they release him and they make good. On stage this week, Kermit comes out and introduces the audience to Linda Ronstadt, but first, Bugsy Salsa Pueda and his hypnotized horse. Presumably, this is what the audience sees. At some point, he tries to hypnotize the horse. The horse overpowers him, gets his stopwatch, and hypnotizes him instead. Presumably. Then Piggy and the Swedish Chef introduce what's-her-face, Linda Ronstadt. She performs Blue Bayou in a bayou with a bevy of frogs, and it's a lovely musical number. Next, we hit the Swedish Chef's kitchen. He's opening a bottle of champagne, which pops, and he goes flying into the air. We get a quick transition over to the Muppet News Flash, where a UFO has been sighted, and the chef crashes down, hurting the newsman. After this, we get Rolf, who plays the banjo, which was weird. I was like, that's Kermit's thing. Plays the banjo and sings The Cat Came Back as an old lady tries repeatedly to commit pet abandonment and abuse.
And fails.
Following this, 2 dusty, cobweb-strewn gentlemen take the stage. One plays a sad tune while the other sings a sad, happy song called I'm So Happy. Scooter, for some reason, takes the stage and introduces Lola the fan dancer, and a woman comes out with electric fans and dances.
And flies away.
We then find ourselves in the Swine Trek where, with pigs in space, they're fighting deadly robots that look like steamer trunks, according to Miss Piggy. And Kermit is presumably zapped with a gun and tortured inside a box. Just realistically, that's what happens. The trunk is suddenly pulled off stage by a hook. Kermit takes the stage to introduce Linda Ronstadt one last time. They sing "When I Grow Too Old to Dream." It's a sweet, sad tune, and they're joined by one of Jarman's favorites, where a bunch of Muppets just wander out onto the stage and start singing. One of Jarman's favorite moves.
Oh, yeah.
Kermit thanks Linda Ronstadt one last time. Kermit goes fishing for a kiss as Piggy punches her way through the steamer trunk. They shake on it instead, and that is what we call the Muppet Show. So, Jarman, what did you think of this week's episode of the Muppet Show with Linda Ronstadt?
I thought overall it was a pretty fun episode. It just nothing that was standoutish as like one of the major moments of the season or something like that. But I think Linda's such a great singer, and she's super cute. And so that was kind of made it fun as a guest host, and good with the Muppets. And she like wanted to be there. That's always key factors. But I think besides the one song that was like the kind of Motown type song she did, everything was very kind of ballads. And
it's in His Kiss.
Yeah, it's in His Kiss. I wish she had done more upbeat songs, because there was just a lot of ballads and slow songs, and so that kind of like dragged the pace a little bit. But I like Kermit's fancy suit. That was nice. When he first came out, I'm like, oh, he looks fancy. And then I like that they brought Gonzo having fungus and mildew collections back from last episode.
From the last episode?
Yeah, that was like a callback. We don't get those very often.
Yeah, we never get those in the Muppet Show, like ever.
That was a continuation. I was like, cool. The mildew's coming back.
That's canon.
That's right. And like their whole love triangle between Kermit, Miss Piggy, and Linda was fun. But then also just Miss Piggy, on a rare occasion, kind of really earnestly addressing the fact that she's in love with Kermit, and not in a comedic way, but kind of just like, I really love him, like really breaking down to Linda.
Nice.
That was nice.
You're absolutely right.
But yeah, what did you think about it?
So I think that Blue Bayou in this is maybe one of the best female performances in all of the Muppet Show, of any female performer on the Puppet Show. Even though you're right, it was slower, not say it was low energy, but it wasn't a high-paced musical number. But I think she did spectacular. This had a lot of really good tenets. It had really quick pacing. Realistically, it really did go from one thing to the next. We had good interlude musical numbers. We had a few standards, Pigs in Space, Muppet News Flash, and Swedish Chef's Kitchen. It had all these tenets of episodes I'd love, and it just didn't quite click in. And I don't know why. And I don't think it was her. She did, relate well to the Muppets, had good moments with Kermit, had good moments with Piggy. So I'm not sure why this isn't all automatically rising to the top for me, because it feels like it has everything I like.
think because there was no big moment. Like it was all decent moments. And nothing,
I'll talk when we get to Muppeteering moment. I really struggled this week. I looked at this episode and I was like, there was no. You're right. No technical wow moment. No moment of crazy Muppet showmanship.
Yeah. I think it's what kind of makes it so it doesn't go to that next tier, because it's just kind of like, it was good. But there's just nothing that gave it that oomph.
But overall, I thought she was a good guest. She's better than a lot of the guests we've had, certainly.
Oh, yeah.
I like that the backstage plot drove what was happening on stage.
Mm-hmm. I will say there's one moment that
earnest moment with Piggy. Yeah.
The thing that stood out a little bit for me is that Miss Piggy makes a comment to Linda when she still doesn't like her, saying, maybe by the end of this number, you'll find the rest of your clothes or something like that, because she's the Blue Bayou number. She comes out in kind of a white number, and you can tell she's not wearing a bra. And I was just like, I just happened to look up, Linda Ronstadt when she was younger and stuff, and almost every picture, she's clearly not wearing a bra. So I don't know if that was kind of like a standard of her having and Kermit having a crush on her. Maybe she's kind of like a sex symbol at the time. I'm not sure how much of that was true, but maybe
Kermit does refer to her as a real foxy lady at one point, I think.
So that was part of the appeal. But Steve, what are our songs this week? What's going on with that?
Oh man, music this week. Blue Bayou. This was actually originally a Roy Orbison song, Roy Orbison and Joe Melson. And funnily enough, Dixon's Baseball Dictionary, Blue Bayou, or a Linda Ronstadt, is a code for a fastball because it blew by you.
That's funny.
So in the Dixon's Baseball Dictionary, it's listed. The cat came back by Harry S. Miller in 1893. Though he was a white guy, he was known for lyricizing songs to sound like a Southern black man at the time, like a very stereotypical, like that's what he was known for. But he is also credited with the popularization of the use of people calling people baby and honey.
Oh.
And that becoming part of the like the black culture nomenclature at the time was because of this white guy who wrote songs and performed as a black guy.
It's so weird.
Real weird time. Real questionable. I've Got a Crush on You by the Gershwins. It was actually used in 2 different Broadway productions, one called Treasure Girl and one called Strike Up the Band. Of course, I love these weird old musicals that you don't know anything about. So Strike Up the Band is a satirical musical about a cheesemaker who sponsors a war with Switzerland in hopes that it will be named after him.
What?
That is literally what this is about. And then Treasure Girl is about competing people on a remote island engaging in some sort of treasure hunt, presumably with some sort of romantic story going on along with it.
Interesting.
I'm So Happy. The fact about this one is that I think only one other time in Muppet Trek history, I've been able to find absolutely nothing about a song. This is maybe the second time I was able to find not a single thing about I'm So Happy. Even on Muppet Wiki, they had the names of the composers, and even searching the song's title with each name.
That's weird.
Nothing. So I don't even know how they found those names because I was able to find nothing at all.
Wow.
So good on you, Muppet Wiki, because I was able to find nada.
That's like a fact of its own. Yeah.
Yeah. The Shoop Shoop song, also known as It's in His Kiss, it was by Rudy Clark and Mary Clayton. Mary Clayton was actually the first person that recorded it as the single, but it didn't chart at all. It failed. And it wasn't until a year later when the woman called Betty Everett recorded it that it became the giant R&B hit that we know now. But when it was first released, bombed. Weird. No one listened to it. And then When I Grow Too Old to Dream by Romberg and Hammerstein. It's from the film The Night is Young, which is the story of a young starlet trying to seduce an archduke, becoming his secret lover while he waits to get married for political gain.
Okay.
Musicals were weird, guys.
It's like
for
they
a long
found
time.
Random plots to throw in to connect songs together. That's all it was.
Yes, that is 100% correct. But Jarman, so I know we already kind of mentioned that neither of us were blown away. What did you end up putting as the best Muppeteering moment?
It's weird
for this episode,
but I'm actually going to go with the UK spot, which was the Whatnot singing the I'm So Happy song. Because there wasn't a lot of bombastic stuff going on this episode, but I think that performance by those Muppeteers, whoever did their voices and controlled them, was just really nuanced and performed really well. And it had a creepy, ethereal aspect to it. And the way he would turn back slowly to look at the piano player and they'd give him like a look and they'd turn back and continue singing. It's like, so it was more of a nuanced thing, but I thought it was done really well for how odd it was.
So I'm going to tell you what I wrote down, and then I'm going to tell you what I've changed my mind to over the course of our discussion.
All right.
So what I wrote down was Lola the fan dancer, because someone had to come out and sell this joke. That in itself was Nakat. Someone had to come out and sell that.
That's true.
But the more we talked about it, I think I'm going to change my answer to something a little unconventional and go with Frank Oz as Miss Piggy having that nice, earnest moment where she honestly admits that she is in love with Kermit.
I agree.
Because I cannot think of another time where we have given the Muppeteering moment for acting.
Yeah, exactly.
In that regard. Maybe one other time. There was another sweet, serene moment, maybe with Gonzo or something. But yeah, so I'm changing my answer to Frank Oz in that sweet moment with Peggy.
Because it was done well. It was done very well.
It was. Yeah. So, Jarman, what happened on this week's episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation?
Well, this time we have Coming of Age. So the Enterprise has arrived at Relva 7, the home of the Starfleet Operational Support Services, so that Wesley can take a test to see if he can join Starfleet Academy. But once they arrive, Picard learns that an old friend of his is there and wants to see him, a guy named Admiral Quinn. So Admiral Quinn arrives on the ship with an Inspector Remick and says that he can't say why, but that Remick needs to investigate the whole ship and interrogate every member of their crew. And of course, nobody's happy about this, especially Riker. I could see some real good pissed off Riker this episode. But Remick delves into a lot of their old adventures, asks them questions about other episodes we've seen and who trying to find fault everywhere he can, especially with Picard. He seems really focused on getting Picard in trouble, even delving into Picard's captain's logs and stuff like that, trying to find discrepancies. Meanwhile, Wesley goes down to the planet and takes his tests with other applicants, other young Academy applicants. And he's doing a great job, but because he's Wesley, but he also takes away from his own high scores by helping others do better because he's Wesley, and that's what he has to do. But back in the ship, Remick can't seem to find anything shady about the crew, so he reports that to Admiral Quinn, saying that he would also love to join their crew because he feels like it's a family there and he loves everybody so much. But now that Admiral Quinn trusts Picard and trusts that he's safe, he tells him that he believes there's a vast conspiracy going around, possibly infiltrating all the Federation, but he doesn't know who's involved yet or where they're coming from. So he had to make sure he could still trust Picard. And now he wants Picard to become an admiral and put him in charge of the entire Starfleet Academy. So that way he'll be close by in case the conspiracy starts getting out of control and he needs Picard's help. But since Picard just saved a teenager in this episode from killing himself in a shuttlecraft, he's reminded of how important his job is, and he turns down the offer, but says he'll still help Quinn in any way he can. Meanwhile, Wesley's facing the hardest part of his academy test, the psych portion, where the testers make him believe that an explosion happened at the base, and he has to try to save a couple of crewmen who are near the blast, but he only has time to save one of them. So he does so, leaving one crew member behind who dies. But apparently this is all part of a test. They were all actors because he had to face his own fear of his past, because apparently Picard had to make the same decision years ago, leaving Wesley's dad behind to die. So it was one of Wesley's fears he didn't even know he had. But after going through all that, Wesley doesn't even make it in, and one of the other applicants does because he had helped that applicant earlier on. And the instructor says there's other reasons too, but doesn't share what those other reasons are. Wesley's dejected and thinks he failed, but Picard privately perks him up by confiding in him that even he failed his first attempt at joining Starfleet Academy. And then they go off and have dinner, and everything's happily ever after for now. So, Steve, what do you think of this episode?
Okay. So some things I liked. I thought it was an interesting opening with Wesley being tested and the starbase visit. Like, that was nice. And also to get a different change of scenery is always nice. Mm-hmm. I just thought it was funny that the investigator was asking questions and bringing things into doubt that as we watched it, I also had very questionable responses to. Like them giving untrustworthy people like unguided access to their computer and ship all the goddamn time.
They often do, yes.
And so, like, you know, even that I've questioned, he was like, why'd you guys do that? I was like, yeah, why did you?
Answer the question.
Okay. We got an actual Worf scene.
Yes.
Maybe the first actual Worf scene in all of Star Trek so far.
It gives Wesley a nice pep talk.
Fear, the personal questions, like him making it clear that he lives with the fear daily and that is the real enemy. Mm-hmm. Like, all that was great. And Worf was the right character to have that moment with Wesley.
Not Tasha Yar.
It worked so well.
I will say, you're going to be eventually tired of Worf scenes, so I'm glad you got your first one.
I love that Wesley like doesn't know how to talk like a tough guy when they have that fake confrontation in the hallway, and he realizes that the guy is some species that takes politeness as weakness or is deeply offended. And but the way he like grabbed the guy, he's like, "Do you want this to become violent?" I was like, "Oh, you're terrible at this, Wesley."
You're not a violent guy.
I thought there was this is going to sound funny, some genuinely good television making and cinematography in this episode. Specifically, it was used to great effect during the interview scenes where they were transitioning between the interviewer, the questionnaire, and the crew. And they did an effect with a clean rotate with a rotating screen that was used to transition the shot, and good movement across with the investigator moving across camera while they cut the shot so that it was suddenly him questioning another person, to do a very clever, what amounted to a montage, but done very, very well.
Yeah, and you get to see a lot of the crew in quick succession and have their own little parts of the show.
Yeah.
Really
so that was just good television making. I don't know who directed this episode, but they got it. Like, that was great. I did like the sort of reveal that it was him being vetted for a promotion. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, they do keep it very nefarious feeling through most of the episode, but I did like that was the result. And it was the sort of the finale of Wesley realizing what his fear was really well communicated, and I feel really well earned from the story and characters they've set up so far.
And it's part of his history too. Yeah. That
Wesley's fear is that because of his past trauma, he won't be able to make the decision because he'll think of his dad.
Yeah.
And that he doesn't know if he has the power in him to make that decision and leave a man behind because his dad was the man left behind. That was so well earned for the characters they've set up and the development they've set up. It really shows a bigger view of the characters that we have never seen before.
That's using
and this
Wesley
payoff,
well. Yeah.
This payoff was that's the sweetest payoff we've had. Maybe in all of Star Trek so far.
He's just a cheap ploy to have problem solving happen instead of that.
Mind you, they did use him like that for like 5 episodes
yes, but now
in a row. 5 episodes in a row.
But now he's becoming a real 3-dimensional person, a real character. Yeah, exactly.
I hate him a little less, I think is the thing. Okay, some things I struggled with. I hated that the commander, it was stupidly vague for no reason. We've never seen this kind of treatment of like, so what are you investigating for? I can't tell you. Let him talk to whoever he wants. But for what? No, I can't. It's like, come on. This is so stupidly vague.
Well, it was a
nothing in Starfleet.
He's worried about nothing a conspiracy.
In Starfleet but nothing in Starfleet is this vague.
Well, that's because it involves more than Starfleet. It involves some kind of conspiracy that he can't talk about.
I know, but Picard knows Starfleet policy well enough that one of two things likely would have happened here and not what happened. One, Picard would have said, this is highly unusual. This is not right. I'm going to ask, I'm going to pitch this up.
That's possible.
Because he knows policy well enough. Or the other thing is there's a policy for this where the Admiral just needed to say, this is a code orange 2. You need to stand down. And then there could have been a scene like, what the hell is code orange 2? It means that there's an internal investigation of something and but some explanation or some policy that covered it. But instead it was this really awkward.
See, I think it worked just fine because of the fact, 2 things. One, it was outside of Starfleet policy. It was not necessarily a legal operation because he was trying to not let anyone know he was doing this investigation in Starfleet because they could be compromised. And I think the reason Picard didn't take it up a notch was explained by the fact that they say first and foremost that he's old friends with this guy. So he's giving him more of a benefit of the doubt than he would some random admiral.
Of why he would put up with it.
So I like the idea that they introduced the fact that he's his old friend. Because you're right. If it was some random admiral he didn't really know, he'd be like, fuck this. I'm going to go talk to the brass upstairs.
Fuck this. Let's go talk to Super Admiral.
Yeah, Super Admiral. Come on, let's do it. So, yeah, but I see what you're saying. But I was okay with it for those reasons. It kind of worked for me.
I didn't understand the reason to shoehorn the Kurland kid plot in. The only purpose it served was to get Picard off the hook. Mm-hmm. But I didn't understand to the point where when he was going out in the shuttlecraft, I had to say, wait, who is that kid again? I had to have this moment of why is this important? It felt like some of the dialogue was clumsy, especially surrounding the mystery of what was being investigated. He's investigating something. I can't tell you what, but it's something very wrong. And it kind of felt like a Trump political speech.
In what way?
Because it was just something's terribly wrong. Oh, man, it felt just the worst stuff you can imagine.
People
folks.
are saying.
People are saying, I can't tell you what, though. I can't say. Can't say, but I'm telling you.
It's terrible.
Bad.
It's actually terrible.
Yeah.
What they're saying. You wouldn't understand.
But then and then nothing. And then really forceful statements nothing and no one will stand in my way. I was like, what?
Yeah, a little over the top.
So, and then the other thing was, so then we have the other half of the plot with the kids trying out for Starfleet. And if these kids really were the best of the best of the best, even within the best, why the hell would Starfleet not be we could probably make room for all 5?
I know.
What the hell's the sense of only one of you can get the final rose to go to Starfleet? It didn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, I actually wrote that in my notes. I'm like, I love the plot of him applying for Starfleet, but they really, I'd forgotten about this because they must really downplay this or rewrite it completely because it's never this difficult again to get into the academy. there's not just like one person per year who gets in or something ridiculous like that, because that would make any sense. So,
well, and then the other thing, and I don't know if they meant to do this, but in the end, it was like, well, he got chosen not because he was better than you, but because he'd be the first one. And I'm like, did they just make an affirmative action play in Star Trek?
Did he say that? That was the reason he took him in?
Like, he was the first of that species, weird fish face guy.
I don't think he said that was the reason he picked him, but he said
it was said out loud at some point.
He did say, like, you'll be the first one, but he didn't say that was the reason they picked him, but it kind of feels that way.
But that's what it felt like.
Yeah,
it
maybe.
felt like that's what it was. And I was like, what the hell? There's not enough diversity in the cosmos that we have to do this still? Are you kidding me?
We're still doing this like 200 years later?
Oh, my God.
That's funny.
I think it's funny that there were clearly... For this guy being a professional investigator, he got in the way of people's duty a lot. And it's clear that there were rules about that because Riker got to throw it in his face a few times. Mm-hmm. But it was just one of those, like, for a guy who does this, he's pretty bad at this.
Yeah. I love the Picard moment, though, where he's like standing in front of him. He's like, you're responsible for that child's life. And he's like, I know. Would you get the fuck out of the way so I can actually take care of him? Like, that was great. This Picard standing up to him.
I found it highly unrealistic and uncharacteristic that Riker got to the point of like nearly physically lunging at this guy a few times.
Yeah. He was real
and maybe
angry.
If it happened once in like a really tense moment or something, maybe. But because it happened like 3 times, I was like, what the fuck is happening? Why would Riker just suddenly be like not able to control his body?
Yeah. Picard was like, full cooperation, take it easy.
And then my other question is, like, in a world of standardized tests, how the hell does Starfleet coordinate and manage all these customized cadet tests? like the exact things to test each cadet. There's 5 cadets with 4 customized tests each,
with actors and stuff.
Who coordinates this?
And like, I assumed it was going to be like a holodeck thing, but no, they got real actors to be like in the final test.
I also like that when the investigator went to ask Data. It after he was like, Data was one of the last people he talked to, and it starts with, so you are bound to tell the exact truth, right? You can't lie. And my immediate thought was, why the fuck didn't you start with Data?
Yeah.
We have an android who's a perfect witness and knows the computer systems in and out and literally can't lie. Yeah, we'll save that guy for last.
And then he does interview him and he's like, no, there's nothing wrong here. Your assumptions are wrong.
Your premise is wrong.
Yeah. Sorry.
But yeah. So I genuinely liked this episode for the most part. The one big glaring issue for me was the Kurland kid plot just felt kind of shoehorned. But otherwise, I thought this was a great episode.
Yeah, I did too. I think it was all the ensemble got a chances to shine, especially you got that Worf moment, which is great.
Oh my God.
So yeah, it was
so good.
Well done. I think in the first one we've had, it's the first of the A and B plots being very separate, being 2 different episodes, almost like Wesley doing the Academy thing. And then you got this conspiracy questioning thing going on. It's like 2 different episodes happening at the same time. And that's kind of what we get going forward from here. So I liked it a lot. But
yeah, I mean, I can genuinely say that this is probably top 3 for the season for me.
Nice.
Without having to think too much about it. I'm not even sure what the third one would be because it's this one and Data Lore are the 2 top ones. I'll probably have to fish it out for the third, but who knows? We still have a little bit of season to go.
Yeah, there's some good ones coming. All right, well, that's solid episodes for both of us, I think. Some trivia for this episode, a little bit. We got, starting with this episode, Maurice Hurley took over the job as showrunner from Gene Roddenberry. So Hurley was concerned the show's writing process had stalled under Roddenberry's leadership. And that was a pretty popular thought at the time, that he was trying to keep too much of the old stuff going forward and just not being more ingenuitive and new kind of writing. So he personally paid for Gene Roddenberry to go on a holiday with his wife, Majel Barrett. It's like, you guys go have fun for a while. It was on the understanding that he would take over while they were gone. And even when Roddenberry returned, he saw how well things were going and he kept Maurice Hurley in charge for the writing staff. So it may be why the A and B plots are really solidified in this episode going forward, because it's a totally different style of writing for the episodes. This is the first episode to have Commander Riker sitting in a chair by lifting his leg over the back and straddling it. And this unique way of sitting on chairs eventually becomes something that becomes a signature move of his character called the Riker maneuver. And from now on, you'll see it anytime Riker sits in a chair, he does so by going from behind it, putting his leg over and landing in the chair. That's how he sits in chairs. He dominates them.
Yeah, it's like a professional wrestler going over the top rope just to show off. Just stepping over that top rope.
I'm just going to take this chair by force. Tashanik was the Vulcan Academy applicant that we saw, and that is the first Vulcan speaking role on TNG so far. So she got like 2 lines maybe, and that was the first Vulcan in TNG we've had actually say anything. So
wow.
It's pretty cool. And that's all the trivia we got for this one. So what are our Trek Connection, Muppet Connections this time? All
right. Linda Ronstadt appeared as her own voice on a now famous episode of The Simpsons, Mr. Plow, as did Leonard Nimoy. He also did his voice on multiple occasions, like 5 or 6 episodes. Leonard Nimoy did his own voice.
Mm-hmm, that's true.
There was a cover, this is a weird one, cover tribute group called the Linda Ronstadt Experience that performed her greatest hits. They were inducted into the California Music Hall of Fame, and the MC and host for the event and who announced the award was William Shatner.
Of course it was.
Yeah. Tasia Valenza, who played Tashanik, the Vulcan we were just talking about, her very first IMDb credit was in a movie called Crackers, which starred Jack Warden, who played the newspaper boss and editor in The Great Muppet Caper.
What a connection. That one's good.
Note, though, she is now like a prolific voice actress with hundreds of credits to her name, including a ton of video games.
What's her name?
Tasia Valenza. It'd be easier to look up the episode and find her.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
But look at her voice credits. She has done a mile of voice stuff. And then we've got Ward Costello, who played Admiral Quinn. Mm-hmm. He was in an episode of Newhart featuring Bob Newhart, who hosted the Muppet Show, who was the guest on the Muppet Show. He didn't host, he was the guest. Man, many similarities.
So similar. Yeah, so because they're similar episodes.
Basic, same episode.
I mean, come on. Both have someone being saved from a small, dangerous space. We have the teenage crew member of the Enterprise being saved from the crashing shuttle by Picard, and Kermit being saved from the locked trunk full of fungus by Linda Ronstadt.
Both feature people getting more dressed up than usual. Kermit in his suit for foxy lady Linda Ronstadt, and Picard in his dress uniform for the going away dinner.
That was a weird dress uniform. It was like a robe kind of thing.
Like a tunic kind of thing, yeah.
Both have characters that start off as enemies but end as friends, kind of. This was a bit of a stretch, but the investigator that interrogates everyone, Rennick, on the Enterprise, eventually ends up loving everyone because they're so much like family. He's like, I want to be a part of it, after being so belligerent to them the whole time. And Linda and Miss Piggy become united at the end of the episode because of their shared love for Kermit. And they give a nice little hug. They hug it out.
I've got something similar. Both feature heartfelt reveals of seemingly tough characters. Worf having that nice revealing moment about his fears with Wesley, and then Piggy admitting her real love for Kermit.
That's true. That's very true. Oh, what's that noise?
Transporter malfunction.
Oh, God.
Transporter malfunction.
All right, it's the part of the episode where we transport one character from one episode to the other and then vice versa. So what you got for us, Steve?
All right, this week, Muppets to Trek, I'm going to bring over those 2 guys from I'm So Happy who are just so sad and replace the downer applicants who are trying out for Starfleet. Probably Tashanik and the other girl who are just like, I'm never going to make it. I'm never going to be good enough.
But that's okay, because I'm happy.
Yeah. This is going to be that emo look we're looking for.
Muppets to Trek, I'm going to have the hypnotizing horse take the place of Investigator Remick. He could just hypnotize all the crew members into giving the answers he needs.
Overpower them and then hypnotize them.
With crazy red eyes.
Trek to Muppets, I'm going to bring over one of the jealous cadets to replace Linda Ronstadt, and it's in his Kiss. I think it would shed a completely different tone on their relations with Wesley and why they're so jealous.
That's true. That's true. Trek to Muppets, I'd have the angry alien that Wesley meets in the corridor take the place of Kermit, because he's the one who takes his courtesy as an insult, because he would immediately fall in love with Miss Piggy as they insult and fight one another on a regular basis. They'd be great partners. But that brings us to the end of episode 121 of the MuppeTrek Podcast.
Join us next time for the very final episode of The Muppet Show.
That's right.
With special guest Roger Moore.
Oh, yeah. We'll have our honest review of what we're going to do for the top 3 episodes of that season, and then the top 3 episodes ever of the Muppet Show. Is that right?
As well as the bottom 3. The
yes,
worst
and the bottom
episodes of the
3.
Muppet Show.
That's the fun part.
Come back for that. What do we got next generation?
Next generation, next time we got Heart of Glory, which I don't remember at all, so that'll be interesting.
Ooh, blank slate. But until then, from the lovers, the dreamers, and us.
Live long and prosper, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the MuppeTrek Podcast. Be sure to follow us on social media on Facebook and Twitter.
Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform.
This podcast has been brought to you by A Play on Nerds.